What's up, YouTube? It's the Action Figure Grader coming back to you with another vintage Kenner Star Wars market update. And we're going to cover loose graded items today. Nothing too crazy in this batch, a lot of common items, but I thought it would be kind of fun to just see what fairly high grade, mostly common figures are going for right now, given that we're seeing a little bit of softness in the vintage Star Wars collectibles market. And, I just thought it'd be kind of fun to check them out. We got a lot of last 17 to go through. And as you can tell by this thumbnail, a big Sears multi-pack sold. So I've got the data on that. And before I forget, I also want to mention, if you have a collection to sell, whether it's graded or ungraded, still in the package, mint on card, or just loose, vehicles, action figures, whatever you got. If you've got vintage Kenner items for sale, you can reach out to me at actionfiguregrader@gmail.com, and I will put you in touch with trusted buyers. And I've had a lot of subscribers take me up on that. They've got big collections. They don't want to sell it all on eBay and deal with that. You can reach out to me, and they've all been very, very happy. So actionfiguregrader@gmail.com is where you can go to send me an email. All right, let's take a look. We've got, I'm going to go basically by seller. And this seller had a number of high-grade loose examples, all fairly common, that I wanted to go through. But it's interesting to see what prices are doing. Hong Kong, Boba Fett, fairly common figure, right? And the price is kind of holding steady at around $250 for an AFA 85, new case style. So, we've talked about this at length. We know that the Hong Kong Boba Fett is probably the most common, and the prices have come back down to earth a little bit after the Book of Boba Fett has come and gone. For a while there, this was like $450, AFA 85 Hong Kong, $247.50 plus $8 shipping. He also had this one, which I thought this was a really good deal. This was a Darth Vader with a letter on the saber hilt, which is always a little bit more desirable. Usually seller or buyers will pay a little bit of a premium for that. But it's a standard Hong Kong figure, lettered saber hilt. And that one sold for $189.50, which I think is a really good deal there. Usually I would say a letter on the saber hilt, I was thinking like $250-ish. That was kind of the number for an AFA 85. But this one did sell for $189.50, which I thought was a good deal. Here was that no COO Chewbacca that I mentioned in a what to buy video. That one did sell for $195.50. Kind of in line with expectations on that one. A little tougher to find the no COO Chewbacca. $195.50, $8 shipping. He also had the Hong Kong Zuckuss, and this one did not have the circles on the backs of the knees and heels. AFA does label that, so this is the one without that. This one sold for $104.50. I thought that was a really good deal as well, given that, $45-50 to grade it, to get an AFA 85, and to get the harder to find example without the circles on the back of the heels. I feel like this one is a little tougher to find versus the circles on the knees and heels version. So $104.50 plus $8 on that one. Then we had a Hong Kong blonde-haired Luke Bespin, and this one sold for $206.40, which again I think is down a little bit relative to what I'm used to. Again, these are all common figures, but it does seem like now's the time to kind of fill in those holes in your collection if you do have a common figure that you're looking for. So pretty good deal on that one. Here is a Hong Kong beige torso Admiral Akbar. There's also, I believe, a Taiwan and a no COO. There's a Lily Letty for Admiral Akbar. This is one I still don't have. I need to add this one probably this year while it's cheap. $108.50 on that one. There's obviously the beige torso, and then I think they call it the cream torso. I can't remember what they call it, off-white. But there's two kind of color torsos for the Admiral Akbar. But this is the beige Hong Kong, $108.50 on that one. They also had a Royal Guard, but you couldn't tell what COO it was. I'm guessing it was probably the Hong Kong. Yeah, there it is. If you look on this closely, you can see HK on the label, but very tough to see it in the photos. But this was the Hong Kong Emperor's Royal Guard. There's obviously a Taiwan, a no COO, and a Lily Letty for this as well. I think those are the major variants. But that one sold for $125 for an AFA 85. I thought that was a really good deal. Next up, we've got CAS Retro Trader. He had a number of other examples. This seller, very trusted. I've bought from several times over in the UK. And he had some for buy it now situations as well as at auction. And this one was a standard Hong Kong R5D4, 1978. So this is the most common for the R5D4s. There's obviously a 1977 Hong Kong. There's also a no COO for 1978 or 1977. So you got 4 different examples right there that are pretty common for the R5D4. Pretty nice looking example though, and this one was graded UKG 85%, and this one sold in an auction for 170 pounds, which is $217 US, and that's about the going rate, whether it's UKG 85 or AFA 85s. They kind of go 200 to 250. That just kind of is consistently the price point for a really nice, clean R5D4, and that one did look very nice. So 170 in an auction on that one, and then he had some others that sold in buy it now situations, and a number of Patreon supporters picked these up. This one was the No COO Princess Leia Bespin. He had an 85 that I think I covered in my last loose graded market update, and then he had this 80% No COO. And for the No COO Leia Bespin, there is this one, which is kind of a flesh tone to her face. And then the harder to find example is the really pale face. I think they call it like the ghost face or the geisha Leia Bespin. It's a very, very pale face, very wide face. This face sculpt looks very similar, but it is a flesh color to the face on that one. So there are so many face mold variations for Leia Bespin. It's crazy. You've got kind of a thin face where she looks really young. You have this one where she looks like a grandmother. It's kind of an older face style. There's very wide faces. So they were all over the map for those vintage Leia Bespins. I don't understand why there were just so many face variations, but this one was, again, the No COO graded UKG 80%, and that one sold for $147 US. And to buy it now, he had a No COO 90 grade, UKG 90, green lightsaber Luke Jedi Knight. So very nice grade on that one. And you can see there, Jedi Knight, green lightsaber, No COO, 90% for the cape, paint, and figure. So very high grade. That one sold for 275 pounds, which is $351 US. Now, I would think like an AFA 90 would set you back even more than that. Probably closer to 400, if not 450 for a 90% AFA. So I thought that was a pretty good buy, in my opinion, for the UKG 90%. And I really like how they encase it here. It's kind of a nice case style, a little bit different than how AFA does it. AFA does it with the cape behind the figure. And I don't know which is better. You could make an argument for all these. CAS has got the cape on a stand next to the figure, and it's a very wide case. So it just depends on what you like. But I thought that was a really nice presentation. And again, 351 took that one home. He also had this Taiwan UKG 85, and that one sold for 175 pounds. I think I had this one in a what to buy video. I thought that was a very fair price for a Taiwan, which is $223 US. Very clean looking figure. That's every bit, in my opinion, of an 85. Although you could argue right there, it looks like it might have a little bit of a rub on the wrist gauntlet there that maybe I didn't see before. But that's still a very nice figure. It probably would, because of that rub on the gauntlet, it might get an 80 plus with AFA. But otherwise, look how clean the rest of that figure is. That armor, that green armor, is absolutely flawless. So, beautiful figure and worth every penny of $223. I almost thought about buying this one for a little while there, but I'm just trying not to spend any money. I did buy a Tri-Logo recently on Deal or No Deal. It was kind of a whim, so that should be here soon, and I'll do an unboxing to show that, along with an item at CAS that should be back soon, as well as a beautiful AFA 85 loose graded cloud car pilot that Jason W., a good buddy of mine and Patreon supporter, sent to me as a Christmas gift. It was a super generous gift. So I'll show all of those once the CAS item gets back. We'll do a kind of a recent pickups video. Here is that floating D Spanish PvP Chewbacca. This is the harder of the two Spanish variations for Chewbacca to find. The floating D, and there's also a circle on foot that's very easy to find. This one's a little tougher, and this one was UKG 80, and it was 99 pounds, which is 125 bucks. That one did finally sell. I think I sent it out to Patreon supporters in a buy it now alert, and then I also put it in a what to buy video. So that one did finally sell, and again, excuse my voice, I'm still sick from this really bad respiratory thing that my daughter gave me, but there's the label on it, floating D UKG 80%. I was really tempted to buy this. I really was, because I've got the circle on foot variation, but I don't have this variation. And look how wonky his eyes look. Man, Chewbacca has been hitting the Bantha Poodoo laced, blue milk or something. I don't know. His eyes are definitely a little sketchy there. It looks like he stayed out a little bit too late on Saturday night. But that's a really awesome figure. I should have bought this figure. I don't know why I didn't buy it. If you happen to get it, congratulations. I was looking at it, and by the time I was getting ready to pull the trigger on it, it did sell. So that one did sell for 126 US dollars. We've got the UKG 75 R2D2 pop-up lightsaber. So not particularly high grade, but it's sold, I think, for a fair price. It was a UKG 75. It sold for 465 pounds, which is about 600 US dollars. And quite frankly, I mean, we see them sell for this price ungraded all the time, loose complete. So I don't think that was a bad deal at all for a UKG 75. He also had a UKG 75 yak face, which that one sold for 479 US dollars, which is 375 pounds. And then as crazy as, that one seems pretty fair. But this is the crazy one. This was an AFA 85, and it was listed for $1,240. And the best offer accepted on that was $1,050. So, we did document CIB selling an AFA 85 for over $1,100. So it's below that price. But I really think in an auction, if you're patient, you can get an AFA 85 yak face for $800 minimum or maximum. I really think that it's come back down a little bit in price. Maybe I'm wrong on that. And, I've had some Patreons or some viewers, they recently watched my, bubble video and it's like, what did we learn? And he's like, how can you say that yak faces are not an investment when you got to pay $800 or in this case, $1,050 for it? And so maybe they are an investment. Okay. The whole point of my video was just to say that be aware that if you're spending $1,000 or $800 on a yak face, you may not get that number back in 10 or 20 years time. Okay. Because there's going to be a flood at some point of our generation selling off these collectibles. And it's been proven time and time again with past generations, Lionel trains, antiques, all kinds of different collectibles that G.I. Joes, like the big tall G.I. Joes from the 40s and 50s. Nobody wants those anymore. They all want the 3 3/4 inch Hasbro G.I. Joes. So what's going to happen is that our generation is going to start to die off. My kids' generation, Generation Alpha or whatever they are, they're not going to want these. They don't care anything about vintage Kenner Star Wars stuff. So you got to time it right. Okay. You got to time it right as to when you sell your stuff. And as long as you understand that, I mean, I understand that my AFA yak face, AFA 85 yak face, I'm probably not going to get what I paid for it. I'm getting value out of displaying it and holding it and being able to kind of talk about it on my channel. So there's value in it for me. All right. So yes, there probably is an investment aspect to dropping $1,050 on this yak face. But my only point to the video, the collectibles, bubble video that I made was that you need to understand that there's probably going to be a flood of these things in 20 years time. So anyway, back to the video, $1,050 on this one. Be patient, please. Don't spend $1,050. No offense if you happen to be the one that did it. There's going to be a lot of AFA 85s that come up at auction on eBay in 2024. Okay. There's going to be a lot of them. And I don't think you're going to need to spend $1,050. I really don't going into the next year. So, that's my 2 cents on it. You can disagree with me if you want to, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe yak faces continue to go up because in general, last 17 figures are continuing to hold their value pretty well relative to everything else. Here's another one that supports that. This was a CAS 90 Barada. That one sold for $285. That's up a little bit. I mean, you can get an AFA 85 for $225, $240, somewhere in there. So, this was a CAS 90 and it sold in an auction for $285. So, some of these values are showing that the value's there. This one I was surprised by. This one came in low. This was an AFA 85 Imperial Gunner, old case style, admittedly, but it sold for $342. That's a little low, but I would say that this one's probably not an 85 anymore because it's got a really bad belt rub. And, maybe because this is the oldest of the old AFA cases where this figure rattles around inside, maybe that, that belt rub happened after the fact. So, maybe the market said, hey, look, if I get this regraded, it's probably not going to hold an AFA 85 grade. So, which should probably still get an 80 plus, right? So just something to think about with some of these older grades. If AFA opens back up in 2024 for loose grading again, even for reholdering, there's going to be a delta there where you can buy some of these inexpensive figures and, inexpensive older K-style figures and then send them back in to be regraded with AFA. Now, I think this one would probably not grade out at an AFA 85 if you send it back in. Because AFA does, if you send in stuff to get regraded, if they don't think it's an 85 anymore, they will ding it on the grade. It happened to Charles over at 5 Idiots Talking Toys, I think. I might be wrong on that, but that's just something to keep in mind. So anyway, we also had an Imperial Dignitary. This one, is up. This one was going for like $225 to $240. This was an AFA 85. And it sold for $315. So for some of these figures, some of these last 17 figures, there has not really been much of a slowdown, if at all. Finally, I wanted to show you this one. This seller, I think I've shown a couple of his other multi-packs that he's had for sale on eBay in my What to Buy videos. But this was the Sears 7-pack that had some of the skiff guards. It had the Jabba's Denizens. It had strangely, it had an ATST driver. And then the ERG along with the Emperor. So it's kind of a weird mishmash of villains. And it was a 7-pack. It was graded CAS 85, straight 85s for the subscore. Pretty awesome department store 7-pack. Now, it was listed for $1,500, and the best offer that was accepted on that was $1,300. And I think, to me, $1,300 on this versus, $1,050 on a fairly easy to find yak face, I would spend the $1,300 on this. This is tougher to find and more unique. Now, I wouldn't want this because I don't have the space for it. But if if all else being equal, and it's not, admittedly, it's, about, let's call that $250 more expensive. But you can find a yak face really easily. This you cannot. You cannot find this very easily, already graded in such high grade like this, straight 85s. So anyway, just my opinion is, going into 2024, I think we're going to see more market softness. And I think that, if you're patient and wait for an auction on common items, I bet you'll get some really good deals. Don't overpay going into this year. Now, this one, I don't think there was an overpay. This one was a best offer accepted of $1,300. I think that's worth that for this, personally. I don't think it would sell for much less than that, if at all, in an auction. So maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe it would go for quite a bit less. But anyway, just some rantings and ramblings as we go through some of these loose graded figures, especially the more common stuff that's sold at auction. You can see the prices are down for those, but last 17 seem to be holding their value pretty well. But just look for auctions as you go into this year, because I think you're going to find a lot of those for the last 17 that maybe you need to complete your collection. That's all I really had for this video. Thanks as always for watching, and I'll be back soon.